Hello there, everyone. Hello there, my friends, my followers. Good morning, guten tag. Bom dia, for those of you who are Portuguese, if there are any of you. So I was getting ready to do a tarot reading for my collective when I basically got called to continue speaking more on my story, okay? The reason why is because I have here this little box of charms, okay? And I asked, what should I talk about today? And twice I got the turtle charm, okay? So I'm trying to figure out where my camera is. Oh, there it is, the turtle charm. I got it, that one, and then this one, okay? The first words I heard were fortitude. Fortitude, then willpower, then strength, okay? Now, disclaimer, before I tell this story of an experience in my life, I want those of you to understand that I don't tell this story because I hold bitterness in my heart or I want sympathy or any kind of clout, as they call it these days. I am merely here to tell this story so that others who have been silenced can speak up, okay? To not be afraid to speak up and not be afraid of truth, all right? So, what I want to tell you guys today is, first, it has to do with dismantling the false light, okay? The story that I'm going to tell you, the experience in my life, has to do with the programming that can happen, that's generational, that can pass down from your family line and your own lineage and your bloodline. The experience that I'm going to share might be disturbing to some of you, so another disclaimer to those of you who have a hard time handling tough stories, okay? Now, if any of you watched my first video where I talked about my story, part 1, I'm going to put a link somewhere up where you can go look at it, okay? I was called to speak more about my truth, to speak more about truth in general here on my channel. And one of these things is talking about the aspects of my own experiences so that others can actually learn that they're not alone, learn from my wisdom, learn from my experience, and can apply it to making a better version of themselves and healing. Trauma is healable. It is. It is healable despite what we've been taught, despite what we, shove in our mouths when it comes to pills, or we're told we have this symptom or, this mental problem, okay? I'm not saying that those things aren't viable. They are. But when it comes to deep healing, it can take time. It can take time, and it can even take many years, many processes. And when it comes to deep trauma, okay, one moment, my dog just came in the room. Okay, I guess my dog wants to be here for this. What I want to say is, when it comes to deep trauma, I think that's where I left off, it can even be of a spiritual nature wholly that you might not have uncovered yet, okay? Something that is yet to actually bring itself to your own awareness, because it could be buried. There could be things buried deep within that you don't understand yet, or you haven't uncovered, or you're not really sure how to heal it or how to address it, because the spirit itself within you, your soul, okay, has been silenced, right? And when I say silenced, I also mean silenced by those around you, experiences that you've had, especially of a spiritual nature. Now, previously, I mentioned that if you go take a look at my story, I told you all that I've been through various traumas, a whole bunch of them, including spiritual trauma. Spiritual trauma is a totally different ball game when it comes to healing as opposed to psychological. And spiritual warfare is very real, okay? It is very real. And until you can actually understand your own soul, your own soul's imprint, your own soul's design, it's going to be a lot harder to heal. So what happens when you have suffered spiritual abuse? Spiritual abuse can look like many different things, and it can come from many different backgrounds. And I'm going to say the main proprietary, or what's the word I'm looking for? The main culprit of spiritual abuse tends to be religion, okay? I'm not dissing religion. Just letting you all know. I'm not sitting here saying, oh, religion is this and that. But there was a time when I did, okay? When we're born into families with religious trauma or with deep religious ties, it makes it harder to get out of the psychological traps that are laid for you, especially if your soul is meant for a higher purpose, so to speak. Or if you have an old soul, or if there is something that you have yet to transmute. There are old ways that we don't embrace anymore, that humans don't embrace, that assure the soul is understood. We live more in a brain-centered reality than we do in a spiritual sense, a spirit-centered reality, which is actually changing. It's slightly changing, but it is causing a huge upheaval of, what is under control here, the mind or the spirit, okay? Truth is neither, right? Neither need to be in control, right? You need to be in control of yourself, but not in a way that's detrimental. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, I want to talk about the turtle. Okay. First off, this is my tribe has the turtle in their logo. I'm Miami Tribe of Oklahoma. That's in my lineage. When I was young, and mentioned in my previous video, I had undergone sort of a pariah situation, or what you would call a family that was quite religiously linked to Christianity, baptism, okay? And I fought that. I fought that every step of the way. It was just born into me to be rebellious towards these specific rules and institutions. I didn't want to listen growing up. I was very much a rebel. I was always arguing points, arguing logic, arguing about religious beliefs to my family. I didn't want to be indoctrinated. That's certainly how I felt it was. And I just want you all to understand that despite my own mistakes when I was young, and my mistakes, the mistakes of my family, or the things that I fought against, or the things that they pushed back with, or the things that they did that was abuse, or the things that I thought was abuse, I still love them, okay? I still love them, and I don't look at them at fault for the programming, okay? The programming that is so deeply embedded in their code. Okay, that's the best way that I can put it. But what I do have to speak is choices, right? We make choices. And at the time, the choices that my guardians, okay, my mom, my grandmother had made were also based on the traumas that they experienced when they were young. And in the female lineage of my family, there has been a lot of abuse. And a lot of it has been centered around religious abuse and masculine energy overpowering feminine energy, okay? Now, unhealthy masculine energy, I want to say. Without going too far into the details of my experience, it all came to a head when I was the age of 13, I want to say, is when it got the worst. And I was fighting every day against, I guess what you would call tyranny. If I wasn't being told that I was going to go to hell for my ways of fighting against our family's belief system, I was labeled possessed. I was told that I was thrown into counseling through religious counseling at my own. I had no will. Okay. I was told that I would be doing this or I would be punished. I mean, it was so bad at one point that I actually got grounded to my room for a year because I fought against the religious indoctrination that it was deep within me. It was deep within my spirit to not be denied the truth of my own existence. Okay. I just didn't want it. And I didn't know why. It didn't matter how much they told me, how much I read of the Bible, how much religious studies I had, how much Sunday school I had. It didn't matter how much they tried. I just didn't agree. That I felt that all of it was meant to warp me. That it was denying me of a choice. It was denying me the ability to be myself, to be independent and be me, right? And at the time, I'm sure that my family had the best intentions, but it came to a head when I started running away from home. I started rebelling a lot harder because I was facing emotional abuse and physical abuse and mental abuse. What ended up happening, which was the worst, was when I ran away from home one time, and it was when I was 13, almost 14 years old. I ran away from home, and my friends had, at the time, my good friend at the time, his family was so kind. They knew about the religious abuse that I was suffering, and they actually hid me and in a friend of theirs in their closet. Okay, I actually stayed in, it was my friend's girlfriend, their closet, just to be able to hide away from my family because I knew the police were trying to find me and bring me back home. Unfortunately, I did not want to get my friend's family in trouble. And so what ended up happening was I turned myself in, I got arrested. But what was soon to follow would be a very horrific experience that I don't wish on anyone. In fact, a lot of the experiences I've gone through, I don't wish on anyone. But this one, I started undergoing a deeper series of counseling through a specific church. I'm not going to name that church right now. And it was forced by my grandmother and my mom. And they thought that I had deep spiritual issues because my mother had, she, at the time, thought that it was the best course of action to read my journal. And I had some dark thoughts in there. And so they believed that it was possession. One day, I ran away from home again. And when I came back, it wasn't long. I had jumped out of my window, and when I finally got caught, okay, my grandmother and my mom had conspired to take me to a place that was undisclosed. And this undisclosed location had to do with this specific church. And this church had these people that were going to show me my wrongs. What people don't understand is that some of these churches have youth programs, or they have, I guess, what you would call indoctrination programs, okay? what ended up happening was a series of events where my mother, who herself didn't quite realize what my grandmother and her had gotten into, they drove me to an undisclosed location, to the forest, and this was in the state of Oregon, okay, in the United States. And when we got there, two men met us. It was a small compound that had a very large cabin with small cabins around the outside, which kind of looked like a camp, but there was no one there except for these two men. They took me into this cabin where, I'll spare you guys some of the details, for hours, even in front of my mother, who now was started suffering trauma, they interrogated me about my belief system. They made me sit in a chair, and it was scare tactics. It was interrogation. They made me sit in a chair. I was not allowed to move, where they encircled me, and they pulled out Bible verses. They tried to claim I was possessed by a demon. They did a lot of stuff to me. Just, I couldn't move, and I was crying. And anyway, the whole experience is sort of blocked in my mind. There's pieces of it that are missing because it was torture. Okay. I tried to get away, and at that time they had moved my mother out of the room because she was visibly upset, and they were just screaming. At that point, they were screaming at me in my face and pushing me and telling me if I did not convert, if I did not join the church, okay, I would be going to hell. For those of you out there who are religious, this is not a slap in your face. I'm not saying to you, your religion is evil. Okay, I don't think that way. But I am telling you that this story, one of many, is just an example of spiritual abuse. When spiritual abuse happens, it cuts to the core. Now, when I tried to run, okay, out of that compound, when I tried to get away, and those two men, they stopped me. They stopped me before one of the doors, and then it went black. I don't know what happened after that. The next thing I remember is waking up, and I was driving home with my mother, who could not talk. She was silent. She took me to my room, and then I just slept. I think I slept all night, maybe the next day. Just couldn't move. The trauma mentally took its toll when it comes to suppression. But when it comes to my spirit, I didn't know at the time that I was being, it was trial. It was a trial that I was going through. So, I don't like talking about my experiences that much with people unless they ask me. But the reason I'm talking about this has to do with strength and fortitude. This has to do with the turtle, okay? At the time, I didn't realize I was being protected. I was being protected despite what was happening to me. And I won't go into the rest of the details about what happened to me here, okay? Maybe I'll make a book someday, but... Sometimes we have to go into our shell. And we don't realize that within there is a bigger world than we ever imagined. Somehow we can block out things. We can shade the truth. The truth can be shaded from us. Sometimes we can go into our shell for so long that we don't realize it's been years. It's been decades. It's been 10 years, it's been 20 years that you've been stuck inside your shell. Meanwhile, all the assaults and the barrages and the pain of the past, the demons, the things that you may not have faced yet, are still there. They're not going to go anywhere, right? And spiritual abuse can cause you to shell for a very long time, because most people are naive, and I was at one point. I was naive at one point. Not for long. Not for long. I learned early how people are, and that's because I am an old soul. I grew up very quickly. But this story is not, this experience that I'm sharing with you is not to tell anybody that I hate them, or that the things that they did to me, or the choices that my family made in their own unconscious belief patterns, right? It's not to throw shade at them or make them feel as though they are the evildoers of everything that is wrong in my life, because they're not. They're people who believed something so strongly that they thought it was right, but it was wrong. And it created a shell for decades. I did not know my spirit. I did not understand my own soul anymore. I didn't even want to understand it. So I claimed atheism, and it wasn't until my own activation, which I talked about briefly in the other video, that I was able to see the truth for what it was. All those years of silence, of not being able to see the truth because I was so far in a shell, protected me. It protected me. And when I think about it, and some of the other things that I've been through, if my spirit, if my soul had not undergone one of these trials when I was so young, I probably never would have learned how to actually protect myself. That being said, religious abuse is very, very prevalent in society. And while this happened many decades ago, it still happens today. We have belief structures that have destroyed lives, and people are still killing one another over. But the truth is, everyone should be allowed to uncover their own spiritual path in their own time and in their own way. We cannot force our beliefs. We cannot force how we think or our experiences onto another person. We cannot control that. But what we can control is our own process, our own transmutation. How you take that experience. I could have taken that experience and let it destroy me. It could have destroyed me for the rest of my life, but my spirit was housed in the shell, and it had to be, so that when I was activated, the lessons could finally be integrated. And that's why tarot, that's why all of this you see here on my channel is gnosis. It is not a process of sharing because I need this view or that, or because the public is so important to me. No, it's to teach. It's to show you my process as it's unfolding, and I need to be more open with that, and I need to explore that deeper with those who actually watch me on my channel. So I wanted to say this last thing about the turtle. and how important it is. If you are undergoing a spiritual process or your own gnosis, or you have come to a stage in your life where, oh my gosh, I'm this old. What am I doing with myself? You may be in the turtle stage. You may still need to understand yourself. You may still have, war wounds that you don't get, you quite understand yet. Perhaps your spirit has yet to fully comprehend what is going on around it, what has happened to you emotionally, mentally. You may still have yet to come out of your shell. And if you haven't come out of your shell, or you've just come out of your shell, or maybe even watching this video is helping you to understand yourself, be easy on yourself. We're not snapping turtles, right? We're slow. We're going to come out of our shells slower. You could have been someone who had to pretend your entire life that that's what you believed, or that's who you were. Maybe you had to create a facade. Maybe you have masks, right? But don't worry. If I can overcome that and many other trials, so can you. So can you. All right, so I'm going to go do a reading now. I hope that story helps everybody. It'll get better as I share more about myself and about my life. But right now, I really want to go do a reading for all of you. So I love you all. Thanks for listening to one of my stories. And I hope that all of you learned something, that your own shell may have yet to be cracked open. You know what I mean?